Hello all, welcome to VJ SAP. Today we are going to talk about SAP router architecture without VPN. Generally, when you logging into your SAP systems or when you logged into your corporate network, you no need to log into your VPN, correct? People are going to office and they are connecting to corporate network Wi-Fi and they are connecting directly to the SAP. Whoever is working from home or from outside of corporate network, for them they have to use VPN to access our SAP systems, right? Now, what will happen if I don't have a VPN? How can I access my SAP ABAP systems, right? So, without a VPN connection, I can access my SAP system by using SAP router. How that will work, we can see now. So, if you see here, so user connectivity. So here what we are going to do is we are going to talk about two scenarios. How user will connect to our SAP system, how SAP will connect to our SAP system. What do you mean by SAP will connect to our SAP systems? So you have some issues, you have raised SAP ticket and SAP wants to connect to your SAP system, right? In this scenario, how SAP will connect to our SAP system. Now, the user connectivity to SAP system by using SAP router. How that will work here. If you see here, this side is a customer location. Let's consider this one is a customer location. You have a different flavors like different SAP systems you have in a customer location. On top of that, what you have is you have a component called SAP router, which will have some IP address. I've just randomly given some example here. And on top of that, you will be having a public IP. All right. So this public IP will be routed to your SAP router, right? I just given like 1.1 or 2.2.7 some public randomly have picked this one here, and you have SAP router. So whenever you are trying to connect from outside, you will be routed to your SAP router, right? And always remember whenever you want to connect to your SAP systems through router, so you have to use a port called 3299 and you have to open this port in your firewall. Otherwise, what will happen? You will face a connectivity issues. Right now, this side, the right hand side, if you see it, no VPN. So user will not have any VPN connection. So user 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you have multiple users. They will be using a SAP router string, which is in your SAP GUI, right? So in SAP GUI, you will be maintaining a string and using that string, you will be connecting to your backend system. In this scenario, you will be not having a VPN. Now I'm going back to the SAP connectivity to the customer SAP system by using a SAP router. How SAP will connect to my SAP systems, right? By using SAP router. So generally when you observed it, if you raise any SAP ticket, you normally check the connectivity, SAP router connectivity in your R3 connection test on page, right? And you will open R3 connect or HTTP connect, a port number like connections you will be opened. From there, SAP will log into their system and they will connect back to a customer system. How that will work? As I told, you see here in the left hand side, this is SAP consultant wants to connect to your SAP systems, right? So you have a SAP system here and you have firewalls, you have SAP router at SAP router. So what I mean to say here is, so the right hand side, the left hand side, this is a SAP firewall network. So SAP end, they have their own SAP router and SAP route tab from their end. So whenever we open the connection in our SAP marketplace, that connection also they have to maintain. Like who has to maintain? SAP has to maintain from their end, right? In their SAP router tab, SAP route tab. Now what happened here? So SAP router, they will open a ports on 3299. So they will directly connect to the customer location. If you see the right hand side, this is a SAP customer environment. You have see SAP systems at customer location, this one. Now you have SAP router at customer side. Here what you have to do is you will be having a public IP, you will be having a private IP. So public IP will be connected to your SAP router private IP on the port number 3299. So you have to open a firewall on the port 3299, and this router will be connected to your backend SAP system. Whenever SAP makes connection between SAP marketplace or between SAP side to your customer location, the flow will be follow like this from SAP router at SAP end, and that will connect to the SAP router at customer end, and they will connect back to the system. And if you see in the middle, the global one, this will be passing through a internet, because the connection always it will be open on the public IPs, not on the private IPs. Okay, now if you want to establish a connection, if you want to install a SAP router, what are the requirements we need, right? The first one, we need a public IP. Second one, the port opening. Third one, certificate from SAP. Why we need, I will explain that one. SAP entries in SAP route tab. So public IP. First point we are talking about a public IP. As I told, if you don't have a public IP, then you cannot expose or you cannot open your internet, right? Your IP to the internet. So that will be a problem to your customer. So to avoid those type of issues, what you will do, what your customer will do, he will be creating a public IP on the SAP router host. Second one is port opening. As I told, the port has to be 3299. This has to be opened on the firewall. If you don't have a port opening, then the customer cannot log into your SAP router system. Right? If you want to access your SAP system without VPN or without CITRIX, then you have to have the port 3299. So these two are very, very mandatory, right? Public IP and then port opening. Why we need public IP? If you don't have public IP, what will happen? You will be having a private IP. Then in this case, so private, if you want to access a private IP, you have to log into you have to log into a customer corporate network. So which is not possible from outside. Either you have to come through a Citrix or you have to connect to the VPN. So that's the reason public IP is very important in this scenario. Now this certificate from SAP. Always remember this one. Without certificate, you can start your SAP router, but we are not 100% sure that will work or not. But if you have a certificate from SAP, whenever you have SAP router, the certificate you can download from SAP Marketplace and you can apply it. There is a procedure to apply a certificate in the SAP router part. So this is very, very important. Another one we called as a SAP entries in SAP route tab. This is very important. Again, what we are seeing here is what will happen here if you don't have entries in SAP route tab. In this scenario, you cannot connect your SAP system. Why? Because SAP route tab is a very important thing which you are maintaining your SAP system entries, the port numbers like message server port number. If you want to connect a message server, if you want to connect a dispatchers, all these HTTP ports and everything, whatever the connection you want to open in SAP Marketplace, those related connection port numbers you have to maintain with the system information. System information in the sense you have to maintain IP address or you have to maintain a host name. So these are the very important things. So basically, if you want to establish a connection or if you want to create or if you want to build SAP router, so you need a public IP, port opening, certificate from SAP, SAP entries in SAP router. Next one, what I'm going to talk about here is issues. What issues you can generally see it? Public IP are not present. So you have configured your SAP router, but you don't have a public IP. In this case, you cannot access your router from outside world. That means outside your corporate network. So you have already configured, but you are trying to access without connecting VPN or without having a Citrix. So it will not work if you don't have a public IP. Next one is connection issues. If you don't open any port, like port number as I told 3299, if you don't open it, what will happen? You cannot, again the same problem, you cannot connect to the SAP router. So make sure that you have a public IP and you have a port opening. Third one is starting issues. Sometimes what will happen, if your certificate is expired, then your router might be started or might not be started. If it is started, then it look for your certificate. If you don't have a certificate, what will happen? Your connection will not be established. The another one I can say is no connecting to SAP. So if you don't have SAP router tab entries, so you cannot connect again, as I told. So all are related to your connection issues. You have to have the public IPs. You have to open a port number and you have to have the valid certificate and you have to have the entries in a SAP router. So please let me know if you have any questions, any doubts in the comment section. Thank you for watching this video. Please subscribe. Thank you.